Welcome to our podcast offerings, where we invite you to take responsibility for your own well-being, reclaim your energetic sovereignty, embody authentic living, and come home to your true self. We are two sisters, two oceans apart. Maya Lotz from the Energy for Life Wellbeing practice, and Sandy Lotz-Weiner from the Inspired Life Coaching practice. Together we bring you the Ocean of Abundance podcast and lots of possibilities to engage with when you choose to align with the wisdom of nature. Welcome. So in today's episode, we wrap up our Reiki Precepts series and review and explore what we've learned. And we look at further questions that have arisen in our journey with the precepts. So let's dive into the ocean of abundance and see where the current takes us today. Before we dive into our discussion, as a reminder, here is our ocean of abundance version of the precepts. For today only, let go of anger. Let go of worry, be grateful, be honest, be compassionate. Welcome. So in today's episode, we wrap up our Reiki Precepts series and review and explore what we've learned. And we look at further questions that have arisen in our journey with the precepts. So let's dive into the ocean of abundance and see where the current takes us today. Hi, Sandy. How are you today?
Good day, Maya. I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Beautiful, soft, rainy day out my way, and I'm cozy and snuggled up and ready for this podcast. How are you?
I am well, thank you. It's the end of a beautiful summery day, early evening, sun setting, and ready to look at why did we explore this? What led us to wanting to share Reiki precepts with other people and to unpack it? How did you come to the precepts? How do you work with them? How do you use them?
Okay, so lots to unpack there, but we'll do that during the course of the podcast. I just want to note how interesting it is that we're sitting on two different continents, right? So, two different seasons at the moment. I'm autumn going into winter, and you spring going into summer. And it works for either season of your life. Reiki, I want to start right there. It doesn't matter how you get to Reiki, it's a universal principle that you can use no matter what's going on in your life. But like most people, for me, it came when I was looking for answers. Normally, when life goes well, you just go along. But when we're going through a difficult time, we sometimes look for other options and other modalities that we can apply to our situation. And for me, that was when I discovered Reiki. And when you find something that works for you to get you into a different state of being, or something that's really helpful as a metronome in your life, it becomes part of a discipline for you. Most of us just like to share that with others because I have experienced the value of it for me. And now I'd like to maybe offer that, invite people to explore that, to see whether it can make a change in their lives. And pretty much that's, I think, how I got to Reiki, and I still continue using it. And as I go along, I find that where Reiki started as something I had to learn and then try and implement in my life, it becomes a cornerstone of what you do just every day. And it doesn't matter where I am, whether I'm at work, at home, or in a social setting, this is a portable skill I take with me. And it's always helpful for me to navigate whatever I'm going through, to offer me maybe a more harmonious life or a more pleasant day. And I'm even thinking that it affects the relationships you're in because you are able to arrive there in a more centered, grounded state.
Beautiful. In my journey, Reiki found me. Someone else was going to attend the Reiki invitation seminar and decided they just could not. And couldn't I go? And this would be better suited for me. So I kind of went reluctantly and quite skeptically. And the person presenting picked up on that energy and she said, I want that skepticism because in my experience, the people who come to the introductory session who are skeptical are the ones who end up taking the course and going all the way. And that was me in the end. And I was obviously in that sort of skeptical mode because I hadn't chosen to do this. And this had just been sprung upon me. So I was kind of caught on the back foot. So Reiki found me. And then I actively worked with it. And life happens and you lapse and things happen. And I would go back to it. And it was always there. But the second sort of going to Reiki came from a very dark moment and realizing, live it, where before it seemed to be a lot of rules and regulations you followed and actions you performed. Because when I initially learned about Reiki, we didn't have the vast knowledge and experience and insights that we do now. And ironically enough, I would say that the Reiki I learned initially, although Reiki is about choosing love, it was very fear based. You know, it's like the way it was often rolled out in hindsight. It still had, you must do it like this, sort of elements of what I would say fear. Whereas now we look at Reiki very, very differently. And the precepts, the first time round, was just these things that you kind of said and you aspired to do. And in a way, was one of the stumbling blocks for me because once you have the Reiki training, you feel on such an energetic high and you've done all these practices. And then you begin your 21-day post attunement daily self practice. And one of that practices would be to work with the precepts. And initially you're on this high and your cup is so full. And then the first time you have a day where you're angry, you feel you failed. Well, we don't look at the precepts like that anymore. So a turning point for me, which made Reiki more alive as a way of being, was when I came across, I think I've mentioned this before, work from Yolanda Williams, where she spoke about how hard it was for her and she reflected or mirrored similar experience. And then she actually created a series where you could work and unpack the precepts. And she also offered that in working with them, it's not all going to be sunshine and moonshine and roses. Difficult things will come up. This is a practice of self reflection, self awareness. Awareness is what we refer to as being mindful, noticing what we notice, and opening ourselves up to look at things differently with compassion. What here is mine? So for me, these precepts are these universal guidelines, and they bring you back again and again, and they keep on giving. The more I work with them, the more I can see where I want to dodge things. And they hang together. You know, we can unpack them. I mean, you can take one phrase of the precepts and go, I'm going to work only with for today only. So for me, personally, going through periods of depression or through recovery, just breaking life down into for today only. In fact, I'd still say just the preamble, that phrase that we put in front of each of the precepts, is still a very valuable anchor. When life feels too big for me, when a decision feels too big, then I shrink it to for today only. And that's that thing of if you take one step and then tomorrow another, then slowly, slowly you can build something. So for me, working with the precepts can be applicable whether you are neurodivergent and struggling with overwhelm and overthinking. It can be helpful when you're going through stressful periods in your life. It could be something that helps you gain self-sovereignty and realize you're not victim to life. You have choices to make. You can change your mind. You can look at it differently, and also to be honest about your emotions. And now, again, just in giving my version here, I've already mentioned words in the whole of the precepts. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Sandy.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Thanks, Maya, for sharing that. I'm going to tackle the piece of overwhelm because when we learn these things, as you say, first time it's through curiosity, maybe, or desperation, wherever you enter. But if it's curiosity, you learn it and then you try and work with it. Depending on who we are, we're not going to get it molded to where we want it to be. right from the word go. So we might have this like in and out, like the ocean, like a lot of stuff is like that. It's not the fact that we didn't start it and do it regimented is almost the word I want to use, because that's why it felt to me when I was introduced to it first. It's like a rigid structure. And I was not in the phase of wanting to do it like that. But I never let go of my Reiki. I kind of adapted it, like I do a lot of stuff in my life, because I feel it has to be user friendly for me to be able to break it down into a bite size or digestible way of integrating it into my life. But when I came back to Reiki, it was a moment of overwhelm after the passing of my husband. And my practical steps of dealing with it was I had a mantra that said 3 things before 3 every day that I woke up. All you have to do is 3 things before 3. And that's pretty much the practical version, my interpretation of just for today. That's all you have to do, right? And then that starts building on one another. And we start where we are and we adapt it to what is going on in our life, present tense. And it makes us more self aware of where we can shift, what I need to give attention to, what is taking energy away from me. It's a wonderful skill set or tool or habit to bring into our lives to bring more harmony to us when we're in a time of maybe energetic chaos, to put it in a different light.
And it's that sense of befriending the self. So, again, there is a precept that talks about be compassionate to self and others. So, already in the act of adopting this as a daily practice, a daily ritual, however you want to phrase it. And I like the practice because you're going to keep practicing it. It's like when you are a yoga practitioner. You can do all the qualifications you want unless you actually show up on the mat often, daily, preferably, or work with it and make it yours. It just remains this set of instructions that's abstract. So from the get go for me here, and that was something that wasn't imparted for me in the first round, it seemed like an unattainable nirvana like state. And again, what was not explained is that the more I inquire, the more I'm going to learn. And so let's say, for example, let go of anger. Over the years, certainly, there was a lot of suppressed emotions where life just had to go ahead. This started bubbling up. And then you think, oh my goodness, the Reiki's failing. But the Reiki's not failing. It is bringing up all the suppressed emotions below that iceberg of anger. Do you want to explain that iceberg of anger before I continue, Sandy?
And yeah, we can talk a little bit about that, but I also want to say I want to pick up the word fix.
Mm.
I think when we start with Reiki, we might, like, I think that's where I was in my life at that time. We're looking for an external thing that's going to be like a magic wand that's going to fix me and keep me in a permanent state of nirvana. And now I
Mm.
think we're all a little bit more realistic, more mature. Maybe I am. And I know that nirvana is not necessarily a constant state of euphoria, right? I think it's about accepting what is and allowing the befriending of that, right? So, because yeah, we're not always going to get what we want on a daily basis. Things are going to come up that's unpleasant. And how do I be with that without imploding? And so it's more about a self-awareness tool. That's almost where I want to go with this than fixing.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting because that obviously reflects the state I was in at that time. Because now I'm very much somebody who realizes there's nothing to fix here, there's nothing broken, there's just this what is. And I look at it and I flow with it and I learn from it. So, and now Nirvana is a band that we all love.
Like the Nile is a river.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I love that too, because what you're saying is so true, especially in the beginning when we're a novice at self healing, right? Or self growth. When we're a novice at that, we are so externally fixated that something is going to be like the golden rod or the whatever. Even it could be anything, yoga, I changed my diet and now I'm forever never going to get sick again. We have that kind of mindset, but we grow with it. So every time we come back to something, we deepen our practice, is what we say with things like yoga or Reiki. We deepen our commitment. Even in relationships, people move apart and then they deepen the relationship again with some effort. Every time you come back, you have a bigger appreciation and a different perspective around how this is working in your life for you. Not fixing it, but how it's working for you in your life. So let's go back to anger. We've all seen that picture where anger is like an iceberg, and anger is the piece we see. It's like the steam coming off, right, from a pressure cooker. But there's so much underneath. The submerged part is really what's going on. Anger is a pseudo state, really, that we choose to mask. It can mask a lot of other emotions underneath. It can mask hurt, grief, loneliness. It can mask suffering, if you think about that. Any kind of state that brings suffering that we are not prepared to honestly face yet, or that we're unaware of, maybe, or that we are denying, is that irritation in the energy that is shifted, that is disturbed, might show up as anger. And some of that is societal. A lot of people have been conditioned that coming from anger is more powerful than coming from vulnerability, because what we're actually asking somebody who's experiencing anger is to quiet, go and dive under the water and go and look at what's under the anger, which means be vulnerable to face some of the difficult emotions that aren't powerful. Anger is a more, dare I say, feminine expression of energy, a vulnerable. So we live in a society where power is sometimes favored, right? And sometimes that power is fix and do and loud and boom and go getter. And so anger can be more tolerated there. It just shows up more there, and we think that it's normal. Anger can also be very destructive if we don't pause to look under the water to see the bottom of the iceberg so that we can choose a more appropriate, more loving response. So I think that's why they put anger at the top of the precepts, because we can create a world of hurt if we have unresolved anger driving the bus and we don't ponder to see what we can peel back to start working with what lies underneath.
So, actually, what happened for me in listening to you, I think you described my process. And I think I seem to be getting very tearful on our podcast lately, but I think your process has been similar. So, we had a lot of suppressed anger, and the anger, it bubbled out and burst out. And we were very fiery fairies when we were a couple of decades younger. And what was underneath that was a result of being in a very yang world where it's productivity oriented, it's a very masculine paradigm, it's go, 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 and it's put on the lipstick and show up in the boardroom, even though your mother died yesterday, keep going, keep going. And there was no room for yin. And it felt powerful. That anger made you feel powerful. It like revved you. And a great big shift, I think, for both of us has occurred in embracing the yin. My journey this past almost 5 years now was a very low point. What's come out of that is vulnerability is my gift. And there is a confidence and a courage that comes with that I never found in anger. And I'll pick up on that more. But to come to, I think, our anger was grief left unattended, grief and not knowing what to do with it, more and more situations loading as we just continued living without offering self-care, self-compassion. And when I then started working more with the precepts, things surfaced. So yeah, trauma work became part of my work, grief work, nervous system regulation, you name it. So this seemingly simple set of universal guidelines we're given here is also the tip of the iceberg. It helps you, and it's like that little thing on the pressure cooker. Mom had a pressure cooker, I remember, and then you had to go and pop the little thing on top, and it just lets out a little bit of steam. Coming back daily, and sometimes twice a day, morning and evening, to the precepts to go through them. It's this continuous self reflective practice, and it scaffolds and it builds, and over time things surface, and over time wounds heal as we offer self compassion, as we become braver to be more honest with self. That's kind of where I was going with this, that for me the initial learning of Reiki, the precepts were just these ideals, and now they're quite alive, and they are that anchor, daily anchor, and they help you to understand you are your own teacher. We've also moved away from those external gurus, externals, like what are my emotions trying to tell me about the state I'm in right now? And the more we work with it, the more we then learn. And all the clues are there for today only. Let go of anger, let go of worry, be grateful, be honest, be compassionate. You can take them one by one. What is here today? Who is here today? And you can look at it on a very practical level. What are the things I need to do today? Or you can wake up first thing in the morning and realize there's a sorrowful person here today. Just notice. Sometimes I will go through the precepts and I'll think, there's not a lot of anger here today. And another time I go, didn't realize that was there. I wonder when that popped up. So it also helps in a way with one can habitually begin to suppress, even disassociate from unpleasant emotions. I mean, we've learned about toxic positivity, where we just stay positive, and so we never address the things that make us uncomfortable. Maybe that's a great reason why the uncomfortable emotions are right at the top of the precepts.
Right, because if you think about how much energy we talk about anger being such a masculine kind of powerful thing energetically. Now, if I stay in my anger unresolved and act from there, first of all, it's destructive to everybody down the road, including myself and the planet. But also, it takes a good chunk of energy. What is going to be left for creativity and harmonious relationships? How am I going to build those things? Productive work and safe driving. How am I going to do any of those things if all my energy is going to the top block, like all of it? The same with worry. Not all of us are programmed to default towards anger. When I'm in a difficult spot, my go to emotion is not necessarily anger expressed at others. I might be feeling the anger unbeknownst to me under there. I'm probably either in pain, in grief, or scared, right? And anger will only come out when I feel backed up into a corner. Well, that's me. That's for me how it would come out. But it's knowing what is underneath so I can actually go speak to the pain or go speak to the fear instead of living on the energetic level of anger only. Working with that energy, moving that energy into a more creative energy space.
So I think that for me, I would say that anger and worry are all parts of fear. And then those last three precepts move towards the love. Be grateful, be honest, be compassionate, the more caring side. So if you have a wound, deal with the wound. You're not going to be very happy or grateful for the foot with a giant gash in it until you actually take care of the giant gash in your foot. But you're super grateful when it heals. And you may actually, while you have the gash, begin reflecting how you never really showed any gratitude for having a foot. So there's honesty popping up there already.
Right, but it's interesting too. We both mentioned fear, right? So we can, if we are noticing what we're noticing, and we're aware that anger is coming up due to a specific situation, and we can peel back and see what lies under the anger. Sometimes people did transgress, and anger could be justified, right? But anger could also just be protection for something else that I'm not ready yet to admit or acknowledge or work with. That's not the point. The point is just that's information. I don't want to make choices out of that energy of anger. I would like to get to the source, as you say, because if my source is fear of something, Like I said, if I backed into a corner, which means fear for safety, right? I need to make myself safe first. Then the anger will not rise again that easily, because the anger was a messenger for me to say, you know what, something is going on here that needs your attention. And how am I going to get my attention unless there's an awareness? So maybe anger is the awareness messenger, not to act out of, but to respond to in a loving, inquiry, curious way.
And that takes time. That's not as simple as adopting a modality or trying to work with the Reiki precepts and then tomorrow that shifts. That can take time because it is also dependent on how willing am I to look at what is mine here. I mean, I'm laughing because in our pre show notes, you were saying you wondered why only anger and worry were included. But I notice how we talk about anger a lot because it's quite common. Anger and worry are those key things that derail a day, a good night's sleep, a relationship. It's quite a smart choice. And then in the processing of working with it, and uncovering what's underneath it, we are already beginning to have a compassionate self practice. As you say, notice what is there. And it's also turning inwards because when we're angry, we often want to be angry at. It takes a while for a person to say, maybe I'm angry with myself, but we tend to blame another and want to propel it outward. But always points to something within that is needing nurturing or feeling a lack or feeling not enough.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to pick up something there. We did say, like, wonder why it's only that initially, only anger and worry. But think about it. Like I was saying, anger can take a chunk of energy from you. So can worry. I mean, we can worry indefinitely. So these could be like really massive time consumers of our daily possibilities. We could have channeled that energy into creativity or anything, a goal, a task, anything else. But think again, too. Anger is this do something. It's kind of the next feeling. It's like an outward movement, as you say, whereas worry is an inward stuckness, no movement.
Mm,
So it's like the
mm,
opposite. When we're angry, we have this high energy and want to like break something. When we're worried, we want to clamp down and do nothing. We are doing a lot of internal movement, but that's all. So that the joke, like anger has got the iceberg analogy. There's a saying that worry is like sitting in a rocking chair. You're moving, but you're going nowhere. But it takes a heck of a lot
mm.
of energy, right? And there's no result. The one is acting out or even self destruction, anger acting in, and the other one is going nowhere. Stuck. Now, neither of those two are very conducive to having energy flow through our system for a higher good or for our own survival or for harmony, or it's like it steals the energy, so out of this energy system that we're in.
Yeah, and it actually, again, I was reflecting. So I single parented my last child. So there was a lot of vulnerability. And as my youngest grew up, we had a lot of head to head conflict, and anger for both of us was present. But underneath that, there was fear and there was struggle. And it's all good and well to know that, but to change it. And it's interesting because, as you said, that is like 2 days ago, I mentioned to somebody something that happened. And the person said to me, that sounds unacceptable. You just let rip. And I said to her, no, I've actually learned that when anger comes up for me, if I can look at what's really there and then approach, say, for example, in this instance, my child with love and convey what is bothering me, then the conversation is effortless, requires no energy. The work I do is the pause. So noticing, oh my goodness, anger has come up here that makes me want to lash up, or irritation. But can I sit with it for long enough to see what here is mine? What is it that I'm actually wanting to express? That sense of placing your hand on your heart until you feel the peace, and then revisiting what it is that you want to convey to the other. And practically speaking, yeah, that's also that thing about developing, I guess, the self EQ and developing the self tools to know, let me sit with what's mine before I try and share that with another. And when I do share it, may I please share it in a way that I would like to be spoken to. Now we're back to compassion.
Right. You do not denying compassionate to self and to others, right? Because we have to be self first. I acknowledge that I'm angry or giving me the feeling of anger. I'm not angry because I move through phases. It's not my permanent address. I am experiencing a bout of that emotion. Apparently, in Ireland, there's an old saying, grief is upon me. It's like it visited, right? We're not always in a permanent state of anger, although some people have made that part of their personalities. They have that default. We don't want to go there, but we do want to recognize that anger is upon me. And I want to pause here and then choose a more loving response. And the compassionate part is like, yes, I am suffering because this is upon me or this is painful. And I choose to take action to alleviate it in a nurturing way for self and others. And because we're in relationship with this other human being that is part of the anger equation. So we want to make sure that the equation balances out to make that relationship sustainable. We don't want to handle the anger in a way that the relationship is now off balance and the trust is gone, right? So it's not a quick fix, it's a response that can lead to another response, that can lead to a dialogue. And with all due respect to the person that said that, that is because we have this fixing thing. One step, one action, one push of a button, and instant gratification, I fixed it. But when we're talking about anger around multiple people involved, it's a little bit more of a gentle trot than it is like big boots through the forest. And it's the response we want to take. But we keep on hearing the conditioning of society, which is always going to be there like a gray noise. You just got to filter through, right? Faster, quicker, more direct, more powerful. And sometimes some situations you have to make quick, fast, powerful decisions. I'm thinking of ER. But in our daily life, it's more about nurturing and building and sustaining and letting that light and love throw without damming it up into the pond of worry or the pond of anger, so that we can reap the benefits, so that we are building our lives like a compound interest. Every time you practice this, a little bit more of an opening opens up in your life, more of an awareness, more of a natural forgiveness or tolerance for other people, and allowing that they are going to show up in the way that they show up. And our we just don't want to bump into one another the whole time. But that's when I know and I'm self aware of what my needs are and how to ask for that, right?
Yeah, and I was thinking emotions are energy in motion. So they move through the body actually much quicker than we think. It's actually a decision to hold on to the anger or the irritation or the whatever. It takes quite a lot of effort, which is quite an interesting thing to ponder. So then if we go to the let go of anger, let go of worry, when you start realizing it, you are choosing to hold on to something that's draining you, that's keeping you stuck. That's a new way of looking at your personal energy management. So sometimes now, when, say, anger or frustration or irritation, any derivatives of anger comes up, I will go, I am feeling irritable and I really don't like it. I would rather not feel this emotion, but I wonder what's underneath it. So then that curiousness comes in. And already now it's sort of loosened. It couldn't get its tendrils into my being and make like a ruminating loop in my mind. Sometimes when worry comes up, you realize there's an old story that has jumped on and added a little caboose to the train that you set in motion on the track. And it's making it far worse. And then to begin to unpack.
Yeah, I love what you said there. And you're so right, because so let's go back to the Reiki precepts. when we notice, say it's anger or worry or both, then we know that this is going to like take a lot of our energy, right? And so now we start to peel back to get to the real cause of the worry or the anger, because there's something under worry too. There's something specifically that's driving this, because then I can move towards taking appropriate action and taking my power back to be in the driver's seat of my own life, even if it's only for today, and also take the appropriate action to dissolve what needs to be dissolved there, attend to what needs attending. And you can even go then, once that is taken care of, you can move towards, I might pick an emotion that I want to feel. Now that I am aware of the fact that anger is coming up, but there's something under it or worry, I can park it with Reiki. I don't have to fix everything right in this minute. I just need to be aware and give it to Reiki for a moment, like a holder. And then I can say, well, what do I want to feel? What if I'm not using all that energy for anger or worry, what emotion would I like to feel? And I know one emotions that will always come up for me is I would like to feel peace or joy, or maybe it's, I don't know, comfort. Then you can pick that emotion and then work towards that by with self-care and self-nurturing. How would that look? The other morning I woke up, the first word that popped into my mind was when I said, what do I feel? Luxurious was the word that popped into my mind. And I go, so what would that look like for me in real life? That was obviously the nurturing that I wanted. So luxurious for me is warm cup of tea or coffee. Um, we're going into winter here, so it means fireplace blanket, soft clothing, soft something. A foam bath, that's luxurious. So I need to take an action to create that. Well, I can visualize it and do it as well, but it's nice if you can actually take an action and actually have that experience. So if that's what I really wanted, and I'm giving all my energy away to worry or desiring that and not taking action, I'm not having that, I'm not creating that for myself, right? I'm not meeting my own needs here.
And so we're coming back to self sovereignty when we look at what's the purpose of the precepts. So we, in this conversation, have alluded to the fact that it promotes self healing and personal growth and encourages more mindful living, being more present in the moments. It's also like an ethical behavior framework. And then it also fosters that connection to all beings. And it circles back to, it begins with self. I'm going to show up first thing in the day to self, to examine what's here, to take ownership and responsibility for what's here, and then I enter the day. And the more I work with the precepts, then layer upon layer, I am then able to go deeper in the kind of work I do. We learn emotional management. We learn how to offer presence, not be distracted when you're in a conversation and half on your cell phone. We learn to foster positive relationships. We certainly align with holistic well-being the more we work with it. And we also begin building a life that is more fulfilling and more content. And if we feel more fulfilled and content, then that's what we offer to the society at large that we're part of. And we have a go-to place where we start and end the day. So for me, I take the precepts and I've learned to journal them. So I don't necessarily verbatim go through them, but I've learned to kind of first thing in the morning journal and just get off my chest, as it were, what is there. And there's no judgment here. It's just notice what wants to surface. And those uncomfortable things are usually the ones that want to shout the loudest before I can get to gratitude, maybe. Maybe some days I wake up and I go, yes, thank you, I had an amazing sleep, or thank you for the bird song. But sometimes the noisier guys, they come out first. And then to look at self with compassion and say, I'm here, I've showed up, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to do the self Reiki, I'm whatever your discipline is. You may not be a Reiki practitioner. So it helps us with our personal transformation and to cultivate more fulfilling existence. And also, it's these small, manageable steps. It's just going to do these small little things. Very simple, very powerful, and they bring you towards inner peace and collective well being.
Right. And I love that because we know already that this is going to be a practice that you're going to make a habit of making it part of a lifestyle, right? So you're learning something new and then you're going to embody and embrace and practice it. And it's going to feel maybe a little bit rehearsing in the beginning because anything new is like trying on new shoes. You have to get comfortable with it. But then after a while, when the shoes are kind of broken in, they're like your best buds, right? And you can't imagine living without them. So that's kind of similar to what's happening here. And it becomes a valuable tool for you to move through life with a little bit more ease and grace. And dare I say, when you do interact with others, you might be able to not bump into one another that frequently. But it takes awareness and it takes practice and it takes a desire, I guess, or a willingness to be curious, to see how you can work with it. A discipline, that you have to make the time to bring that in. And then it's not about seeing results, as in major results from the beginning, but it's almost like when you start a savings program with interest rates, it's $10 a week. And then it's all of a sudden you have $60 and then you have $100 and just it's something you do and forget about. So Reiki becomes like that automatic savings that's withdrawn and put into a interest earning account. And you just let it be. You don't worry about it. You can look at it from time to time to make yourself stay the course, but over time it will grow into a life of its own and it will always be positive growth, right? The presence, the energy, and the attention we bring to the Reiki practice it's a mind, body, spirit connection. So you can enter from any of those spaces, but it's holistic, it's energy giving, and it's self sustainable. It's not something that takes from you, it's recycled. You don't lose from it. It's a self supporting, sustainable, energetic system for me.
I think that we have covered quite a lot, and so I think we need to start wrapping up. So perhaps as we close, you could suggest a practical way that our listeners could start taking responsibility for their well being and nurturing their self sovereignty by using these universal guidelines encapsulated in the Reiki precept.
Okay, thanks, Maya. You start wherever you are in your Reiki journey, or if it's completely new to you, you can start where I started. I had the precepts on a piece of paper that I put on my either the desk you work, the computer, the laptop, your journal, somewhere where I could visibly see the reminder, but put it on your phone these days, and visibly see them so that they're constantly there. When I started out, it was on a computer for me. And when I got frustrated or didn't like the looks of my bank account, whatever I was working on, I would visibly see that, right? And it was that reminder for me that there's that place to go to when my life starts feeling like it's taking control of me. And that would just bring me to some form of calm. So maybe that's where we start, right? For those who are already doing Reiki, maybe making sure you have a morning practice where you can check in with yourself to read the weather, to figure out what's going on, preferably before we get involved with the external world, emails and cell phones, even family members. Have that self care practice first thing in the morning. And for me, one of the most rewarding tools ongoing is if we then could actually maybe write something in a journal. It could be bullet point for those who are very brand new. It doesn't have to be paragraphs, but whatever just pops. If it's a word, if it's an awareness, if it's a worry, just start noticing what you're noticing. And then for those who are further down the line, maybe increase your morning routine by adding in a meditation, some quiet breath work. And then follow that up with some form of movement, because when we've learned something new or we've practiced a new skill, to fully let it integrate into the body, making it a spirit, mind, body experience, it's good for us to do something where the body is moving so that that energy can flow through and it settles. And your mind does not always have to remember, oh, wait, I have to do this, that, that. It's like a knowing. It becomes a habit. It goes from the mind of thinking about doing it and then doing it, and then it becomes more of an automatic, oh, now I know how to ride a bicycle because I've practiced long enough. I don't have to read the steps anymore. So make it yours, play with it. I want to invite people to make it, be curious, make it more playful. And then if something comes up, shoot us an email, ask a question. It would be interesting to hear from people.
And we do still have the link in our show notes to our version of the Reiki Precepts available for download, and you can use it as your screensaver on your phone, because we spend all day, every day attached to these handy little tools. And everyone has a phone, and it's there to refer to. Thank you, Sandy. And now for an exciting announcement. We have launched our collaborative website, lotsofpossibilities.com, home to our new online refuge, Sanctuary for Life. Please click the link in the show notes to take a peek. In our next episode, we will introduce and explore the foundations and current offerings of Sanctuary for Life, our heart-centered space where our mission is to inspire other sensitive, quiet wayfinders in the journey home to true self. Until we meet again, we are going to say tot ziens, which is our mother tongue version of saying goodbye. It means until I see you again. Tot ziens, Sandy.
Tot ziens, Maya. Tot ziens, listener.